Hello, hello, all of you beautiful nerds from around the world. I'm, of course, Josh. This is the Den of Nerds. We're doing another fan chat. This is just a live stream where I hang out with you guys. We talk about some of our favorite things, a lot of Q&A. It's very casual. I also want to say happy Star Wars Sunday to everybody out there. If you're catching this live, you're catching this on the replay, happy Star Wars Sunday. Star Wars Sunday has become an institution of sorts over here at the Den of Nerds. Every Sunday, we're doing Star Wars videos. I like to break down different videos. I like to, when I can, stream with you guys. We do episodes of Nerds Talk Star Wars, which is, of course, my interview show, which hopefully we'll be bringing back soon. It's just kind of a weird time right now for the channel and for Star Wars in general. So I'm trying to figure out whether or not it would be best to go then do some of these Nerds Talk Star Wars sort of things. But for now, we're going to stick to just the fan chat thing, which is the way I like to do it. What is up, everybody? Hello there indeed. Sorry about I'm a little bit late too, guys. Just technical difficulties kind of happens with the streaming and whatnot. But I appreciate you guys' patience. I hope nobody had to miss the stream because we ran about 20 minutes late from when I announced it. So, the way this is going to work is I'm going to ramble a bit about the Mandalorian, about the Boba Fett film, about some of the stuff that's going on, some of the news. And then we're going to do Q&A, of course. Every super chat will be answered. Super chats help the channel out. They support the channel, support me. And so if you have some loot and you want to throw a super chat, I will answer every single one that comes in. If you have no loot, do not worry about it, guys. That is not what this is about. It's not a money grab. We are here to just hang out. So we will answer plenty of questions from any and everybody that pops into the stream. So let me take one more sip of my Starbucks here, and then I'll get into my rambling. Okay, so what's this about? Well, a couple of days ago, it was announced, I believe it was Friday, Kathy Kennedy came out and pretty much confirmed that the Boba Fett movie was dead, that the Boba Fett movie is gone. She was talking to, let's see here, Eric Weber, who's a journalist for the Critics' Choice Association. And basically, she told him, and I don't know how this worked exactly because I feel like maybe she just told him casually and didn't mention that this should be off the record or something because the report came out that she basically said that the Boba Fett was completely dead and that the focus was going to be on the Mandalorian show. Okay? Now, the truth is, we kind of already knew this. This was already news. There were multiple reports about after the Star Wars slowdown was being announced and all of that, and they were sort of, Lucasfilm was trying to figure out what they wanted to do with their films next. It was sort of announced that, yeah, the Boba Fett movie, the Oba Fett, Oba Fett. Hey, Oba Fett, you guys ever hear of Oba Fett, the wise master? That was, hello there, indeed, to everyone. What's up, everybody in the chat, by the way? So we kind of knew this was happening. The James Mangold thing, James Mangold was attached. That was a big story. I was very excited about that. We'll talk about that in a second here. But it's sort of a weird situ because we felt like we already knew this. This alert came well late. Yeah, sorry about that. I was a little bit late. We were supposed to be going live at 11. I apologize. We had some technical difficulties, so I'm sorry about that. So yeah, we kind of knew about this, but this was basically it being confirmed that not only is the Boba Fett film dead in the water, but that the focus is going to be on the show, which is sort of a weird turn of phrase. It's a weird thing for her to essentially say, but I believe that. I believe that these things are sort of linked, that it's not just that the Boba Fett movie is done. It's that the Boba Fett movie is done, and they're focusing a lot of that type of energy, the Mandalorian energy, the energy and perhaps even production assets to that of the show, to that of the Mandalorian show. Guys, let me know in the chat, how's the audio, first of all? And if you guys could drop a like on this stream, it definitely helps it out, helps the stream out. So if you could drop a like, that would be awesome. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me, just talking about some Star Wars stuff. So, getting back into it, guys, the thing that is crazy to me is that this Boba Fett movie, ever since the Josh Trank days, has been sort of cursed. Ever since the Josh Trank days, which I don't know if you guys know this, let me know in the chat. I'm sure many of you do. That originally the Boba Fett film was going to be directed by Josh Trank, This is the guy who, of course, did. Oh man, why am I blanking on that awesome sci-fi movie that he did? That was the found footage film. I don't know. I'm blanking on that film. It was amazing, basically. And then he got the Fantastic Four gig after that. The audio's a little bit quiet, you said? Okay, some people say it's good. Some people say... I'll crank it just a little bit. How about that? Do a little bit more. Just a little bit. Little bit there. Hopefully that helps out. So yeah, this Boba Fett movie was in production a long, long time ago. So after Josh Trank and the Fantastic Four debacle and that whole situation, he and Disney parted ways. And so Disney no longer wanted Trank to be on that movie. I think Trank knew he had to sort of walk away too. It was just a rough time in his career. And I hope he bounces back because I like his movies. I do. I thought they were good. And even the Fantastic Four, I thought was a good movie. And then you can see in that film, you can almost see when the studio interference came in, which is kind of whack. They should just let him make his movie. But yeah, so that, I mean, all the way back then we had all these assets and all these things. Now the thing for me is that I think Lucasfilm is the type of company that they do not like to waste assets, production assets and different things like that. So one of the things that I was very curious about was how much of the assets that were made for the Boba Fett movie, this would be costumes, props, special effects, storyboards, different ideas that they had when it came to Boba Fett, how many of those would end up making it into other movies? Classically for me, I was like, okay, what if we, we're definitely going to talk about that, Amal. We're definitely going to talk about that. But one of the things that I was wondering with the Obi-Wan movie, if they were really going to be doing the Obi-Wan movie, which a lot of fans really wanted that movie, then I thought it would be really cool if Boba Fett played a part in this. Now, a lot of this all has to do with Tatooine and Boba's legacy and what did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? Is it just his armor and different things like that? So I'm curious with the announcement that not only is the movie going to be done, the Boba Fett film, but that they are focusing their energy on the Mandalorian show. Does this mean then that we will be getting Boba Fett in the show? That is, I think, the natural extension of the questions here. Now, for me, it's really hard to say because really what the question should be is how much of the plan was set already. We know for the show specifically that Jon Favreau had been working on this show for quite some time. This is something that he had known about. Lucasfilm had talked to him about. He had been working on it for some time. He had written about half of the episodes already. So he's already like getting into it. He wrote it, at least half of the episodes. And this was at the premiere of Solo. So this was much earlier in the year. And I believe that for him to have written all of those and to be in communication with the story group, because you can't just write scripts. Do you know what I mean? Especially when it comes to Star Wars, everything has to work into the canon. Everything has to fit with what the story group wants, with the plans they have for future projects and different things like that. It really has to fit together well. And so my belief here is that for Jon Favreau to have written half of the first season already before Solo even came out, that he would have to have had a lot of plans, a lot of communication with the story group, with Lucasfilm proper, with just everything. This would not just be a whimsical thing, right? Favreau would not just whimsically meet this. By the way, there were photographs of him meeting with Dave Filoni like in the middle of last year. And this was a big deal, like just meeting with Dave Filoni, and his relationship with Dave is pretty well documented. Dave, by the way, doing the pilot episode for The Mandalorian, which is super hype. Guys, by the way, the bonus video, the bonus Star Wars video that's going to come out later today, you are definitely going to want to check out. It is all about the Jedi and Force users that could pop up in the Mandalorian show. I did a deep dive talking about the timeline. Where are all these Force users at? Could we see their stories intersect with the story of the Mandalorian? It's a very cool video. I think you're going to like it. But yeah, so this likely that this project has been in production for a long time, something that Lucasfilm has known about for a long time. Now, does that mean then, because we know that the Boba Fett movie as well had been in production for a long time, it was one of the first movies that they decided to do, the anthology style movies. And does that mean then that Lucasfilm planned on Boba Fett, the film, being associated with the show? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, did these plans intersect? Girls with Sabers, holy crap. Thank you so much for the super chat. Girls with Sabers says, all hail Star Wars Sundays and the Den of Nerds. No question. Just wanted to give 100% thumbs up. I love you emoji, I think. Heart emoji. Yo, the hand emojis are hard to see with that yellow background that they put on with the super chats. But Girls with Sabers, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, so do you guys see where I'm going with this? Like, does this mean that Lucasfilm would have had to have this plan? They would have had to have the plan that, yes, it's very important that the Boba Fett film is set up this way because we're going to drop the hint in the show. If the show begins on Tatooine, which is something that we think is going to be the case, that the show's going to start on Tatooine, and because the main character, and I'm kind of blanking here if this is something that maybe Jason Warden and them talked about on their website. Jason Warden, MakingStarWars.net, has been getting a lot of great scoops when it comes to the Mandalorian story. So I'm starting, I can't remember if this is something he broke or if this was something that Star Wars officially announced. But this main character is supposedly going to be a slave that was freed when Luke Skywalker rescues Han and Leia from Jabba's palace. That when Jabba gets eliminated on Tatooine, that this character is freed. And then this character starts to try to do the right thing. Like has a chaotic good sort of alignment if you're a Dungeons and Dragons player. That this is the kind of character that we're going to get. So really what I think it comes down to is there a plan already set in motion by Lucasfilm and Disney to have the Mandalorian show tie into the Boba Fett movie? That would have had to already exist way prior to the movie being canceled. I say all that to say the movie being canceled does not actually indicate that Boba Fett will now be in the show. It's not an indicator of that. You know? Hey, what's up, Kate? Kate's just popping by. You got to give it up for the patrons. Every time the patrons are popping in, you got to say hi to the patrons. Because they support us and we support them. So Kate and Girls with Sabers, amazing. $100 and you'll see these hands. Yo, there's the hands right here. I don't know what that's about, by the way. The Mandalorian show naturally supersedes rumors of Boba Fett movie. Why should it not? Yeah, I mean, Darth Hammer, that's a good point. I guess what I'm saying is we can't take the movie being canceled as an indicator that Boba would be in the show. However, I still think it's a pretty safe bet that Boba will be in the show, or at least mentioned. He better be in the show. Do you know what I mean? Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Dale. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were saying there. Yeah, Kate, always on top of it. Yeah, I did mention liking the stream, but I'll say it again. If you guys could like the stream, it would really help out. So basically what it comes down to is like Lucasfilm would have had to already have this plan. They would have had to already know, yeah, we want the Boba Fett movie to tie into this show. We're doing the Mandalorian. Now, there's some evidence to indicate that could be the case. They say Jango Fett and Boba Fett in the first like plot leak press release for this show. So when Jon Favreau released this thing on Instagram, it literally says Jango Fett and Boba Fett before him. And so the thing that's really weird is for the casual fan, they are the most representative of the Mandalorians. They look Mandalorians. They're the widest appeal of Mandalorian people. And technically within the canon, I don't even think they're Mandalorian. There's this new thing with the Lucasfilm canon where they're not even Mandalorian. right? So it's like super weird. But I guess them saying it, putting it forward that Django and Boba, and now you've got this new story. It does sort of indicate that there could be a plan already established that Boba Fett would be in the film. Now, the next thing that we got to talk about here is, does them canceling the movie mean that there will be more Boba Fett than there would have been otherwise? That I do agree with. That I believe could be plausible. Meaning, okay, we've got all these assets, we've got all this stuff we wanted to do with the Boba Fett movie. Now we don't get to do that. Well, hey, we were gonna have Boba Fett just be in the pilot. Hey, maybe we want a little more Boba Fett. And they still have plenty of time to make these changes. So the show, the production on the show and everything is starting up. We're seeing the sets being built. We're seeing all of these different things. But the bottom line is, I don't think they're going to shoot. I don't think they're shooting anything until early next year. Now, I could be wrong, but even if that's not true, with a show and with the production, they have plenty of time to change things up, to do what they want. And I believe that now that Boba's off the table for the film, they can introduce even more Boba. The thing that I'm immediately think of is Lost. So if you guys remember in Lost, in the original pilot, which has not a lot of people have seen, I think it's on one of the DVDs as a special feature, but the Matthew Fox character was going to die right away. He was going to die. And because of what happened with the pilot, a lot of people being like, no, I like that character. Like, keep that character around. They changed the show, and he became one of the main characters. And so shows can do that. They sort of work organically. They can do this. And so with Boba being gone, yeah, the movie, I do believe that Disney will put some more Boba in there, sprinkle some more Boba, which hopefully they can really fill out this lore. Because one of the things that I'm really confused about is this whole Boba and Django are not Mandalorian anymore. How do they tie into the Mandalorians? How the Mandalorians view them? Just in general, filling out more of the lore of the Mandalorians, I think is a very important. And so I'd really like to see Boba be introduced more. So that's pretty much where we're at with everything, guys. We're going to go into Q&A now, so feel free to start getting your questions ready. But the bottom line is, I don't necessarily believe that the Boba Fett movie being canceled means that Boba will be in the show. It's very likely that Boba will be in the show anyways, but with the show being, or the movie being canceled, I think it's possible we're getting even more Boba Fett than we would have otherwise gotten. Right? Because now it's like, well, we don't need to save that sweet scene. We don't think we'll save that sweet thing. We can put it into the show now, which is kind of cool. So feel free to start getting those questions, and we're going to hang out. And by the way, we can talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. It doesn't have to be related to Boba Fett, the show, Star Wars, anything you want to talk about. So Kale Eddie says, think Boba would get more than 4 lines of dialogue this time? Well, I really hope so. What would be cool for me is the actor that played Jango Fett. He's a little bit older now, and of course all the clones are supposed to look like him. And so it would be really cool to get that guy, and I'm blanking on his name. I believe he's from New Zealand or Australia. But what would be really cool is getting him, doing some makeup, age him up quite a bit, because I think at this point Boba would be old. He'd be old. He'd be like in his 60s. I'm pretty sure. Maybe even older. Girls with Sabers says New Zealand. Yeah, it's probably New Zealand. I believe I remember that. I could be misremembering. But so, yeah. So what would be really cool is you get him and you have him on Tatooine. And the thing is, I think he could even be like so old. He's like decrepit. He's maybe injured from the Sarlacc. Could still be involved, has connections or whatever. And this new character, which one of the big questions, by the way, is going to be like, is that Boba Fett's armor? Because there's a character in the Aftermath series. Oh, man, I'm blanking on the name. But there's a Mandalorian that gets Boba Fett's armor that's sold to him from the Jawas. And he, sort of uses that armor. So the question is like, is the armor that the Mandalorian, the main character of the show, is that Boba's armor too? Is it modeled after Boba's armor? Like, what's going on with that? But either way, would love to get an older Boba Fett with more lines of dialogue explaining things. Okay, so Darth Hammer has a good question, but first let me just address the equipment being stolen from the Mandalorian set. Amal Babu is asking about that. So I think that this is such a weird situation. Did you guys hear about this? Somebody got onto the set of the Mandalorian and literally stole some very expensive equipment, and apparently they stole either a camera or a memory card from a camera, and apparently this thing has footage, test footage. Oh my god, I just messed up the camera. Sorry about that. Apparently this thing has test footage from the show, and so it's very possible there's like some really sensitive material on that memory card. Now, there's really not too much to talk about with that story, but it's weird, right? Somebody went in there and stole it. Now, there's a couple of I always think of Fanboys, the movie. If you guys haven't seen Fanboys, the plot of the movie is that these guys want to go they want to go watch the Phantom Menace, the new prequel Star Wars movie, before it comes out, and they have this big plot to go across the country, go to Skywalker Ranch and watch the movie. It's hilarious. But it's like you always think like, are those some hardcore fans? Like, are those hardcore fans that were like, yo, let's get on the set of the Mandalorian, bro? And they like steal the pistols, and they're in some like underground thing right now, watching the test footage, nerding out, like pew pew pew, like blasting each other with the props. Or was it just some opportune people that were just going around stealing stuff from different sets? Do you know what I mean? It's kind of a hard story to wrap your head around. But for now, I believe that the production was at such a place that nothing's really going to be like spoiled or whatever. But bye, girls with sabers. Bye. Thanks for hanging out. I know, right? Lance Corporal Kitty says, but who leaves memory cards lying around though? Very amateurish. I agree, but it's like, I mean, you obviously don't expect people to like break in there and yo, Fanboys is great, Dale. You should definitely get it. Have you seen it before? But yeah, what a weird situation. So there's not too much to talk about with it. We don't know exactly what they've stolen. Nobody has like come out and gotten, you know what I mean? Nobody's come out and like put some videos up on there and talked about it or anything. So it's possible that some of that information gets leaked. I don't know. It's really hard to say, right? Mike Zero stole. Redundant Ramblings says Mike Zero stole it. Now its predictions will be true. Predictions will be true. Yeah, maybe. What do you think the intro for the show would be like? So, I have a couple different thoughts about that. I think it'll intro... the way that it'll probably intro is like a Western, maybe even in a cantina scene. You know what I mean? That would be really cool, sort of a callback to the original. But especially if it's on Tatooine, I think the safest bet is that there'll be some kind of trouble happening, and the Mandalorian, whoever this character is, interferes with this trouble on behalf of somebody who can't stand up for themselves. You know, classic Western type of situation. You know what I mean? Gunslinger type of situation. That's the vibe that I think that we're going to get. So I'm actually super excited because I think the show will be very Western, very original trilogy with some samurai notes. And as I said before, if you didn't catch it earlier, the bonus video today is all about the Force users and the Jedi that could pop up in the Mandalorian show. Definitely going to want to check that video out, guys. I think it's a good video. But yeah, that's kind of what I think is going to happen with the intro. Let me know, what do you guys think the show's going to intro on? How do you think it's going to go? So Jenny Raylan asked, now that it's confirmed that episode 9 is going to end the Skywalker saga, do you think it will end happily, or are you still sticking with a tragic ending? It's tough. Look, okay, so this is something that, Wayward Jedi and I actually disagree on. So the Wayward Jedi, and I think he's great if you haven't checked out the Wayward Jedi. Some of you would really enjoy his stuff, some of you wouldn't. But he's like a very positive on Reylo, very positive on Star Wars guy. So he thinks that there's a lot of indications that we will get a happy ending in episode 9. I disagree with that completely. I think that the indicators for me are that we will end the saga in a way where the First Order continues to be in charge of the galaxies, and that the Jedi and the Resistance and the people on the side of the light are actually going to be the minority in the next chapter. And I think it's like, you look at the prequels in the timeline. Okay, so we got the prequels. It's a very like positive thing. The Republic reigns. The like Imperial. There's no Empire. The Sith are very like a minor part of the story. So they're the minority. The Republic is winning. Good is the majority. Evil is the minority. Then you go to the original trilogy. It's the exact opposite. You've got the bad guys winning and the good guys are losing. Now, when we start on the sequel, on the saga, the sequel trilogy, the good guys are winning. The New Republic is established, and even though they're demilitarized and the Resistance is like, hey, watch out for the First Order, the First Order is coming. Despite all of that, the good guys are winning. Now, the good guys take some major L's, but technically, the good guys were winning for the majority of this saga. Now, in episode 9, we believe, due to some of the leaks and just due to some of the things that we're thinking, the First Order will actually be reigning supreme. And the Resistance will be on the ropes. But I believe the best way to take it for storytelling is for the First Order to win, and then in the next saga, the First Order or evil or whatever will be reigning supreme, and then the Resistance will be the minority. So I do not think we're going to get a happy ending. I think it's going to be tragic. Ben will probably die. Ben Solo will probably die. And he'll probably redeem himself in death, much like Vader. But I do hold out hope that they will throw a curveball and that Ben will go into exile with Rey instead. So if you've seen a lot of my theory videos, if you've seen like kind of where I'm at with this, I would love for Rey and Ben to continue to be together, to really explore their relationship together. And I'm not just talking about like kissy kissy, love, love, love. Although that's awesome. I'm more talking about like they're badass together. Like that was amazing. In The Last Jedi, the throne room scene. It's amazing what they would be able to accomplish together, especially I think when they realize what they are exactly with the cosmic force and all that. I'd love to see them together because the master and the apprentice relationship is amazing, but it always had a blocker on it. Because of the Jedi and their rules, it always had a blocker on it. It's like you could care about your apprentice, but only to a point. No attachments, right? So it's like you could care about your apprentice, you could care about your master, but only to a point. And what the Bashir Lashan Revan relationship explored in Legends was when you take those restrictions off, how strong a force bond can be when master and apprentice elevates itself beyond that and becomes lovers, people that actually care about each other, using emotion. Not being afraid of it, but using emotion is the potential there is amazing, and I would love to see that explored. But that's a very long-winded way of saying no. I don't think we're going to get a happy ending. So sorry, I probably missed some questions there, guys. If I did, feel free to just drop them in again. Drop them in again. We'll just continue to chat here. I see a lot of people saying. Not a good ending, probably tragic, maybe bad ending. Yeah, it's funny because Darth Hammer says it predictably tells us Ben Solo will die, redeeming himself, saving Rey. Yeah, super predictable, right? Super predictable. But so's like the ending of every fairy tale ever. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a safe bet. I think that's a safe bet. Nat Fantasy says, I think it's going to end happy. It would be nice to have a happy Skywalker for once. Yeah, it would be, but they're cursed. Redundant Ramblings asks, will Han Solo be in the new show? So that's a really interesting question. I don't think so. I don't think so for a couple of different reasons. I believe that like the biggest takeaway, at least one of the takeaways from the Solo failure, and make no mistake about it, guys, like that's not a partisan issue. Solo failed epically. I think one of the lessons that they probably should have learned is like when you have such an iconic character, because like the thing is, man, it's so unfair to Eldon because I think Eldon actually did a great job. Like, I don't like Solo. Like, let me just put that out there. I did not like Solo, a Star Wars story, at all. But it was not because of Eldon Ehrenreich. I thought his performance was actually really good, and I actually really respect the work he put in as an actor to get little things right. But he's no Harrison Ford. Like, Harrison Ford made that character iconic. The character of Han Solo is an incredibly iconic character. He's just this epic, amazing character, and I just don't think you necessarily want to touch that. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just something they might not want to touch. And so will Han Solo be in there? No. I believe Leia will be mentioned sort of peripherally, but you have to remember, too, the show literally says in its description, far from the reaches of the New Republic. And so while Leia might play a part in the show, she's not going to play a big role because the majority of the show is going to be out on the outskirts of the galaxy. It's like wild space and all of that. So, I guess by that same logic, I would say probably no with Han Solo. I'd love for him to be mentioned, but I don't think he'll be in the show. Opening crawl in The Mandalorian. Interesting question. I don't know about that. Cadus or Kylo Ren asks Amal Babu. Look, man, I love Darth Cadus. Obviously, everybody who's read those books loves Cadus. But I love Kylo Ren. Like I love Kylo Ren. I think he's an interesting character. He's interesting to watch. He's not just your cookie cutter villain. Vanessa Goncalves, I'm so bad with names, sorry. Why no news from the Obi-Wan film? We wanted it. Why not make it? Yeah, totally. Why not make it? Gotta ask Disney and Lucasfilm. I don't know. By the way, this is something this kind of leads me into thought about something that's going on with Star Wars fans right now, where I think we're actually heading towards a better place. I know it's crazy to say, but I think we're heading towards a much better place in the fandom. There's been some recent videos. There's a video by Star Wars Explained, which maybe I should have commented on, where he basically talked about the hate in the fandom and how it's out of control and needs to stop. Star Wars Only, great channel, also talked about how the hate needs to stop. Even the channels that don't like The Last Jedi are starting to come around and say, look, this is just not okay. We need to stop this. We're eating ourselves, right? And so I think we're getting to a better place. The thing is, Lucasfilm is in a tricky situation. The IP of Star Wars is so valuable to them, especially when it comes to like toys and when it comes to amusement parks and different things like that. And Solo was just such a weird between The Last Jedi and Solo. Hopefully they've learned a lot. Hopefully they have learned a lot. But the problem is they're not always going to learn the right lessons. It's a Hollywood thing to learn the wrong lessons from things that happen like this. And so when it comes to Obi-Wan, it's like, I just don't understand. Yeah, Amal Cadus was badass for sure. I just don't understand why it is so hard for Lucasfilm to just get a metric of what the fans want. And I'll tell you two examples. Like, it was almost immediately evident to anyone that spends time in this fandom on YouTube, Reddit, anywhere, that when the Han Solo film was announced, the reception of that announcement was lukewarm at best. Nobody wanted the Han Solo movie. Like, I'm just thinking of a lot of the podcasters, a lot of the people from Jedi Council. Like, Christian Harth was like, nah, not feeling it. John Campea back in the day was like, nah, not feeling it. Like, nobody wanted the Han Solo movie. How is it hard for Lucasfilm to know that when it's so obvious to everybody in the fandom. Similarly, it should be incredibly obvious to everybody in the fandom how bad everyone wants the Obi-Wan movie. How is it hard to not understand that the fan base wants the Obi-Wan movie? And I'll tell you the story. When I was at Star Wars Celebration last year, I went to the Marvel panel, the Marvel Comics Star Wars panel, which was really cool. And they were talking about different books. And at one point, there was this editor. I wish I knew this guy's name. He was a total goofball. They were doing a thing where they wanted everybody to clap in the audience for different books that potentially could come up. And before he even announced what books they would come up, the people in the crowd were shouting, Ahsoka. Make an Ahsoka comic. Make an Ahsoka comic. And this guy, like, just ignores that. He's like, oh, no, people are talking about Ahsoka out there. That's cool. What do you guys think about this movie? Or this comic? And there's, like, people are clapping. But what I didn't understand was in that moment, I felt like it epitomized the disconnect between people, like, higher up and what the fans want. I mean, it's obvious, bro. People are shouting Ahsoka novel. I would have been right then and there. Look, if I was this guy, and I know that you can't necessarily do this in business, but I would have been like, wow, it's really obvious that that people want an Ahsoka comic. I tell you what, guys, we don't have one planned, but I'm going to talk to our people about this. The crowd would have went nuts. You know what I mean? And people would have loved it. So I just don't understand why there's this disconnect. To answer your question, I don't think we're getting the Obi-Wan movie, which sucks. Because just like the Boba Fett movie, which with James Mangold, I would have been so excited. If you guys go back and watch the video I did, which actually it didn't get a lot of views for whatever reason. But when it was announced that James Mangold was going to do that movie, yo, I was so excited. I was like, yes, I love James Mangold. Holy crap, this is a dream come true. James Mangold, Logan director? Like, Logan with Boba Fett? Holy crap. Holy crap, I was excited about that. And, yeah, now we're not going to get it. Man, I'm kind of sad now. Yo, what's up, Yova? Okay, Star Wars 2020. Interesting topic. I was curious about this. In my research for today's stream, I was like looking at this. I was like, well, what are we getting in 2020? Guys, I don't think we're getting shit. Ah, man, I shouldn't have sworn. I shouldn't have sworn. YouTube's so weird, by the way, these days. By me just saying that just now, this stream will go out to less people. Sucks. But it's true. No. Darth Hammer, you're crazy. Look, Darth Hammer, you're crazy. If anything, all evidence points to JJ wanting her to be a Kenobi. Not a Skywalker, a Kenobi. Now, I believe that. I believe JJ wanted her to be a Kenobi. Really? No, they're not haters. They're not necessarily haters. Oh, here we go. Are we gonna start a Raylo war in the comments here? Guys, look. JJ wanted her to be a Kenobi. I do believe that. I believe that. And there's some evidence there. And I also think that John Williams wanted her to be a Kenobi. Because do you remember after The Last Jedi, John Williams famously came out and said, like, I do not believe that her parents are no one. And he loves to do stuff with the music. John Williams is like a true G. But he does stuff with the music that's subtle and ties things together. There's aspects of the Kenobi theme in her theme. There's evidence to suggest that. Also, the most prevalent voice in the message in the Force back vision is Kenobi saying, Rey? It's the most obvious. I would have loved for her to be a Kenobi. But she is so definitely not a Skywalker. Now, here's the thing. There's so much evidence. There's so much evidence out there to that basically completely disproves that she's a Skywalker. I mean, surface level, on the surface, I think you'd have to be denying things to not understand that they're doing the Raylo thing. But not only that, Daisy's come out and said that she's not a Skywalker. Mark came out and said she's not a Skywalker. I mean, dude, she's not a Skywalker. Now, here's the thing. We might be in this weird situation. There was a story that broke a couple of weeks ago. You're going to find this interesting. Lean in. Open up them ears. There's a story that happened a couple of weeks ago where there's like a buttload of new shooting on episode 9. There's some change that JJ made. People were talking about it. And it all involved Kylo Ren. Massive reshoots with Kylo Ren. Now, is it possible that JJ and Lucasfilm are like, well, we were doing this Reylo thing, but I don't think people are going to be into it. Let's change it up. Yes, it is possible. And then it'll be very interesting to see if they do that. It'll be interesting to see how the fan base reacts. I know the Reylo people will freak out. I will not personally freak out, but I tell you what I will do is I will make a series of videos that basically explains 100% that this is what Lucasfilm was going to do, and they're changing now. Now, people say things like, hey, man, Star Wars shouldn't change things like, Ryan shouldn't have changed things. I don't know if that's true, but they should stick to their guns. They should have had a plan, and they had a plan and stick to it. I believe that Reylo is the plan, personally. And so I'd like to see them stick with it. Thoughts on the D&D series of movies? It's interesting because I think that's Old Republic. Let me ask you this. I want to know in the chat, guys. And let me know if you're watching this on the replay, too, because I do check out the comments on the replay. Do you guys want the Dan and Dave movies to be the Old Republic? And beyond that, if they go Old Republic, like, is it okay if we get no future stuff for a long time? Like, if 9 wraps up the Skywalker saga, and we get no continuation of that story for a long time. No announcement of episode 10, but instead, we're going to go back in time and we're going to visit the Old Republic. Would you be okay with the next 5 to 6 to maybe 8 years being only movies set in the Old Republic? I'm seeing a lot of yeses. So, look, I would be okay with it too. I think Disney might realize that that's a good way for them to go. But to be completely honest with you, when I look at what they've been doing, when I look at their business practices and what's going on, I don't think that's what they want to do. I think they want to continue their stories, partially because I think that what Galaxy's Edge is going to be is a canon place for you to hang out that coexists with the story that's going on. So if that's the case, and a lot of indicators, like, think about this. They just did all this investment into this current saga. You know what I mean? They've got a lot of people on board. There's this thing called the Chihuahua Effect. And if you didn't like The Last Jedi, you might not like what I'm about to say. But there's this thing called the Chihuahua Effect. And what that is there's a small group of people that make a lot of noise. Have you ever had a Chihuahua? I used to have a Chihuahua. I don't anymore. They're annoying little dogs. They're small, but they make a lot of noise. That is what I would equate a lot of the very passionate non-Star Wars likers of The Last Jedi. There's plenty of people that don't like The Last Jedi that are still excited for Episode 9. They're still excited about different aspects of the sequel trilogy. There's a very small percentage of people that are like, screw everything in this new saga. Screw everything in this new saga. I don't want anything to do with this. That's a small percentage of people. And so Disney has spent so much time and money investing in creating this time period. I do not believe that they want to just let that go. Right? But with the Star Wars slowdown and with everything like that, it is going to be interesting to see how they react. I think it would be okay for them to do some Old Republic stuff. But think about this. If we get to a point where we only have the live action show, which is taking place in the time period between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and then we've got the Old Republic, which is thousands of years ago, then like nothing is progressing. We're not actually expanding the story. We're going back and we're filling stuff out, which is dope, but there's nothing being expanded upon. There's no continuation of the story. I don't know if that's a good look. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird spot, you know? Thoughts on the new animated movie? I actually don't know what you're referring to. If there's a new animated movie on the horizon, I don't know about it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I don't even think that percentage. Ella says that percentage is very loud. They are, but I don't. I think they're gonna get. Look, I think we're turning this around. I think it's gonna become very obvious to people that we should not be supporting that kind of hate. That's not the way to change things. We need a symbiotic, copacetic relationship with fans of Star Wars and the people that make Star Wars, and we will get that. Media is changing, social media. It's a weird time right now. It's a weird time right now, but we're going to get past it. Okay, great question. Darth Hammer asks, why should, in my opinion, Ray bear the child of a disassociative psychopathic mass murderer? Thanks. Okay, awesome question. Let me deconstruct that question. Um, so much going on in that question. Do you know what leading is? Have you ever studied psychology? So, why should she? She shouldn't, in the sense of her character. But in the sense of the story, I think it makes a lot of sense. This is a fairy tale. And I think that that's one of the problems with modern Star Wars is that people forget that this is a fairy tale. Have you ever heard the story of Zeus? Do you know that Zeus's father was eating all of his children? Eating them. Have you ever studied oh man, I'm blanking on the guy, the guy that marries his mother. What was that? Yes. What was the guy? What was that story where he like marries his mom and stuff like that? So the thing about Star Wars and the thing about mythic storytelling in general is that it's super metaphorical, right? So Kylo, although in the diegetic world of Star Wars, did kill his father, and he is a psychopathic character. What a lot of that represents really is okay, awesome, cool. So what a lot of that represents in the mythological sense is how does a man, and actually it's beyond just male, really male characters in storytelling for a long time, the male character, Oedipus, thank you. A lot of the male characters, what they actually represent is a side of the psyche of a human. So like in the story of the Little Mermaid, Ariel's father does not just represent like masculine, the kingdom, all these different things. He represents reason, order. Okay, and Ursula, I think, represents like chaos and the feminine. Now, there's a conversation to be had. Where it's just like, do we need a modern look, a modern interpretation of these different things, right? Like, is it okay that we represent maternal and female with chaotic and nature, and that male represents consciousness and order? Is that fair? I don't know. But to answer your question, why, in my opinion, should she do this? Well, because what this means, what this child really is, what this would represent, and what Rey represents, is the merging of these two worlds, right? Basically, these two things coming together and creating new life. So in a lot of ways, Kylo, he's a representation of like young consciousness and its past, like its biological past. So the patricide, the him killing his father, like that's meant to represent like a cleaving, a forming of one's own identity. And by the way, the damage that one can do to oneself when this anger and this malice it comes from a place of wanting to be your own person, right? What that can do. Like it's the same thing. Like this is very similar in a lot of biblical stories too. And Cain and Abel, these ideas that are so paradoxical to reason in the diegetic sense are that is because they are symbolic, right? So mostly the reason that Rey should have Kylo's child is because the child itself represents new consciousness having to come into a world where what consciousness itself has done has had a lot of negative effects. So it's like the child has to reconcile, what do I do? What is my path when what has led me here has done all of these things? Now, as far as like in the sense of the character itself, like Ben Solo was manipulated and he is been tormented by the dark side itself. So Snoke represents like Satan. Snoke represents the serpent in the garden. Snoke is evil incarnate. And evil played a big role in some of the things that Ben Solo did. Very similar to the Anakin story. Anakin was manipulated by Darth Sidious. Now, in a lot of ways, Sidious represents Satan, devil, evil. And what this becomes is that the choice that this character makes, like with Darth Vader, what Darth Vader did was very much influenced by evil, by the devil, by this idea in the psychological sense that there is a thing, object to human consciousness, that is trying to get us to be evil, or it is at least partially responsible for the evil within us. And it's all a metaphor, but essentially, like, if Anakin can be redeemed after slaying all of the kids, after hunting down all of the Jedi, and doing all of that, then so can Ben Solo. Anakin had children. Anakin's children in the first story of Star Wars, representing consciousness once again, has to understand what to do in the world given the context of what has led to its existence. Like Luke has to be like, holy crap, my father was Darth Vader. What do I do with that? Which is another way of saying, I am now a conscious person. What do I do with my consciousness that in the context of knowing that consciousness has done so many bad things? So many bad things were done with this thing we call consciousness, like wars, terror, horror, rape, pillaging, awful stuff. What do we do as conscious people in the world, knowing that other people that came before us did a lot of bad stuff? How do we reconcile that? So, like, I don't know. That was probably mad rambly, and I'm sorry. But in my opinion, that is why, and it's such a weird way to frame it. Like, you framed that really weirdly. Like, you said, why should Rey have the child of a psychopathic killer? Well, she definitely shouldn't. Now, why is it very interesting that she does? See my previous statements. Sorry if that was rambling. I know that was rambling. My bad. Ooh, I like this one. Prediction: The Mandalorian finds Slave One. I would love that. I would absolutely love that. That would be really cool because I believe Slave One should still be on Tatooine, right? I mean, like, I don't see why it wouldn't be on Tatooine. Yeah. So maybe that'd be really cool. Especially if there's some kind of a reputation attached to that ship. Like if people are like, especially Mandalorians, again, one of the things I'm most interested in is trying to figure out what is the deal with Django, what is the deal with Boba, and why are they not Mandalorians, and how do the Mandalorians view them? So if this main character finds the ship and is flying around and people see it, then man, that would be so it. Ooh, Kale Eddie asks, if there's a final showdown in 9, where would you think it would take place? New setting, old, couple of different options. I would love for it to take place at Vader's castle. And yeah, on Vader's castle, because that's obviously where Kenobi and Anakin first fought, which, by the way, again, this is why I think that JJ also wanted it to be, wanted Rey to be a Kenobi, because you mirror the battle on Mustafar between Kenobi and Vader. You now have the grandchildren of Kenobi and Vader fighting on Mustafar again. That is some cool stuff. That's awesome circular storytelling. That's really cool. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm thinking. It could also be Tatooine. That would be kind of interesting too. Will there be a final duel between Rey and Ben? Yes. Definitely think there will be. Definitely think there will be. That would be cool. Everybody's, Amal Babu. I will say this about Amal. Amal constantly look. We know. Look, I love you, Amal, but we know your shtick, right? I mean, we know your shtick, man. You don't like the Disney Star Wars. You don't like what's going on. That's fine. I think dude. You're still welcome here as far as I'm concerned, as long as you can be civil. It's fine, man. You're allowed to feel that way, and I would not even say that you're wrong in your feelings. But if you really love Star Wars, like if you really like Star Wars, then you're still looking forward and hoping that you're gonna get some really good Star Wars stuff that you like, right? I mean, with the Clone Wars season 7 coming back, I tell you what, I pre-ordered the other day the Claudia Gray novel Master and the Apprentice with Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm really looking forward to that book. Reminds me of the old Young Jedi books. And so there's plenty of stuff within Star Wars right now to get excited about and to enjoy. And so I would just say, and I'm not your therapist, but I would just say, are you one of those people that that finds pleasure in finding disagreeable things with the things that you claim to be a fan of? You know what I mean? Those disagreeable nerds. That I would run into these people all the time in comic book shops where the newest costume change or the new change of the guard in comics, and they're just like, don't like it, not mine, that's not my Miss Marvel. And there are people that do that are out there, and they find enjoyment from sort of crapping on the thing that they're a fan of. So I would say, like, are you one of those people? Also, if you cannot find it within yourself to look for and be optimistic about what might be coming out with Star Wars, that says more about you than it does about Lucasfilm and Star Wars. You know what I mean? You're not thinking logically if you think that Lucasfilm doesn't care what fans think. They definitely do. They want you guys to enjoy this stuff. They want us to enjoy this stuff. I am a Jedi, like my father before me. Cool. You know what's funny? Like, you say, Lance Corporal Kitty says, those people need a hug. They do. They do. But it's like, how do we, because, like, the thing is, and I've been, and I try not to talk about this stuff very much, but there are a lot of people on both sides of this thing that are acting absolutely ridiculous. I'm actually really, really upset at the way both sides of the Star Wars community sort of talk to each other about these sort of things. They draw these hard lines in the sand and everything like that. Um, it's really weird. So I don't talk about it too much, but I just think that there's a way to be kind that like nobody jumps at. You know what I mean? Like nobody ever says, "Oh yeah, there's people that didn't like The Last Jedi." I think that Disney and Lucasfilm could find a solution where people that liked it and people that didn't like it will enjoy Episode 9. And I think that should be the ultimate goal of Episode 9, which to me seems like a completely reasonable statement. But nobody really talks like that. Darth Hammer says hypothesis is entirely speculative. However, what I'm getting at is why do you desire Reylo at all, particularly when all pertinent storyline indicates Rey and Ben are related? Why do I desire it? That's a good question. I find it compelling. So I like romance, and also, you know what else too? I was doing this thing. I was thinking about storytelling and like mythic storytelling. Mythic storytelling usually boils down to three things. It boils down to a main character, the main character's family, usually the parents, and then a love interest. Like that's like the pattern for storytelling. And some people would make the argument, going back to like the psychological aspects of story, is that this is because this is a psychological phenomenon. A person's identity is first formed by their family, by their parents. Then a big part of the formation of a person has to do with the way they interact with potential partners, romantic and sexual partners. Men, particularly, are scarred by the rejection of women in the natural order, in the sense of male and females. Women, they are the guardians of the door. Men are always trying to get in, always trying to get in. And women decide who gets in and who does not. And the rejection of men, which always happens to us. And if you're a guy out there, like, you ever been rejected? You have. And that rejection wounds us. And that makes us self-conscious. And there are a lot of psychologists that believe that these things formulate aspects of the psyche. We need to look upon ourselves in the wake of being rejected by a potential lover. And when we do that, this creates the aspect of self-consciousness. We are aware of ourselves. We lens it through the eyes of someone else. And that is an important part of our development of our psyche. Yeah, Lance Corporal Kitty, like that. Look, fragile male egos, fragile human egos. Human egos are fragile. It's not exclusive to male. But yeah, so in the sense of why do I find it compelling? Well, because I think it falls upon mythic lines. It's like you can see it from both sides. I appreciate Disney trying to give us the female perspective of like a protagonist and trying to do that. In my mind, that's weird because if you look back at stories like The Little Mermaid, the protagonist is female, but that story is it's not about what it's like to be female. It's like what it's like to be human. Do you know what I mean? So the reason that I'm compelled by Reylo is that you have this dark side entity that is attracted to the light. You have a light side entity that's attracted to the darkness. With everything I know about the cosmic force, it is compelling that there's this sort of star-crossed lovers sort of thing going on, and they're drawn to each other despite them not like needing to be together. And so because of that and the way it parallels to like Bachelor Sean and Revan, I'm fascinated by it. I find Kylo to be a completely compelling character because he's flawed, because he's emotional, and he's a wreck. I find that to be completely compelling. And so I love this idea that despite everything that's set up, we've been playing in this world with Star Wars that's, light, dark, winning, losing. And all of the sudden we're at this place where there's that story's continuing. That pattern is continuing. And despite it, there are these two beings that find a connection, that love each other. We not necessarily choose who we love. And because of that, who we love formulates us as a person. It's the psyche being formed. So that's why I'm into it. I think it's, quite frankly, dope as hell. And romance exists, guys. Romance is a huge part. Look, I know there are people that identify as asexual. And I know there are people that don't think romance or sex should play a big part in society. And they can have those beliefs, but the reality is it does. Sex and romance is a huge part of society and is a huge part of formulating your personal identity and your psyche as a person. And so romance in stories, fantasy, and myth is a huge part of it. It's a huge part of the human experience. It's a huge part of mythic storytelling. Yeah, Disney set themselves up as a fairy tale factory from the beginning. That's them. Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so the new flutist says here, I also feel sad that Raylo is being associated with female fantasizing. It's definitely something that should be a universal message. So so it's really hard for me to, like, I get what you're saying. So it's interesting because here's the thing. There is a group of people out there that were just shippers, right? And I don't know if you could necessarily make the argument that shipping is a majority female phenomenon. I don't know if that's true, but I do know that the Raylo community, the people that first uncovered this, because I think it's a secret. I think it was a secret that was uncovered. The majority of those people were female. They were like Tumblr shippers. Okay. And they uncovered things that then people went on, like, for instance, like the Vincent Vendetta stuff. Vince, did his famous theory videos, and it really solidified it for a lot of different people. And they were like, wow, this is probably true. That's how I got on it. I was like, whoa, like that's very interesting. So there is a part of it that's like, it's stigmatized as being this female fan shipping weirdness that a lot of people associate negatively, and they're like, no, if that happens, that sucks. Like Twilight. I hear that a lot. Like, you don't want to have, Twilight in your Star Wars and stuff like that. And I think, again, that's a misrepresentation of ultimately what it is. I've done my part to try to speak to the more academic aspects of this connection and of this relationship that these two have. I've tried to do my part to sort of explain it. But ultimately, I don't know. This is something I personally struggle with because I'm like, yeah, but it's more like it's up to people how they want to enjoy their Star Wars. Like, okay, I like this. I like this stuff, the mythic storytelling aspect. I love the idea of identity. I love the idea of this. The reason I like Star Wars so much is because it speaks deeply to things that I hold to be self-evidently true about reality. I personally believe that stories are the way we understand ourselves in the world. And they're actually the way we think, too. But if you're just a shipper and you're just kind of like let's just say like atypical fangirl shipper and you love it because Kylo's sexy and there's this whole thing where you kind of want a bad boy and you're like, oh man, this girl could change this bad boy, because I think that's a thing, right? Like girls want to fix people and stuff like that. I don't know if it's like clinically true, but it's definitely a notion that exists out there. Um, why would I want to belittle or take away from that kind of a person's enjoyment of Raylo? Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't. More power to you. Enjoy your Star Wars however you want to enjoy your Star Wars. And so, it's like, oh, was it my job to sort of slap that kind of stuff away and be like, no, Raylo, I'll have you know, everyone, Raylo is not just some extension of fangirl fantasy. Raylo is mythologically sound and actually teaches us a lot about one's self. I don't think that's my job. I don't think that's what I should do. You should enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it. Some people like Star Wars because they just think it's dope that we've got laser swords and space wizards. Dude, however or why ever you enjoy it, God bless you. Enjoy it. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. All right, guys, I've been on here a little longer than I wanted to. Let's take a couple more questions. Thanks for hanging out. I know I got rambly, but thanks for hanging out as always. Let me know. We'll do a couple more questions here, and then I'm going to get out of here, okay? Taming the Beast, the old mythos. Yeah, that's Beauty and the Beast, right? I love stories. I'm a writer. I love stories. I love storytelling. Oh, don't you worry, Yova. There'll be plenty of Raylo videos in our shared future. What do I think about Ray's new lightsaber? That's an interesting question. I think she should get a new lightsaber or get the double bladed saber maybe from the broken um, parts of the crystal. I think that would be really cool. Also, it kind of depends because there might be a time jump, and there might like already be some new Jedi. And there was this rumor that like a lot of Force users would be seeking out Rey. I think it would be really cool if they found a new Temple of the Kyber or something like that. I personally, I don't know why, but I just want to see Rey with a yellow saber. For some reason, I mean, like, that's just selfish. I love yellow sabers, so that's kind of where I would want. Placing aside my personal desires for Raylo, it pushes aside Star Wars film lore. How does one become impregnated by touching fingers? You gotta check out the video I did. I believe if you YouTube the Force Child, or you can go through my videos. I did a theory video called the Force Child video. It's like a 20-minute video. I break it all down. So check that out. I'll answer your question. Ooh, Lance Corporal Kitty. Back to Vader in episode 9. What do you think his role will be? What he'll have to say to Kylo? So that's a very interesting thing. I have a lot of different thoughts on this. I've talked about it on different shows and different things like that. Um, Vader and Anakin specifically has to explain to Kylo the pain, like the real pain of being used. You know what I mean? I think that's part of it. Like, obviously what happened with Anakin was the start of the Skywalker saga. It's a big freaking deal for the galaxy. It's rough. So Anakin can put an end cap on this thing by explaining to Kylo the truth about what happened and why it was bad for him and the galaxy. So that's kind of my answer. Darth Hammer. Okay, so I'll answer this last question by Darth Hammer here. Further, does one become a master by touching fingers? This dispels all mythology and logic. I gotta be honest. I'm not exactly sure what you mean. I think you're talking about Rey's abilities as a Jedi, and some of it having to do with not the finger touching scene, but the interrogation scene from The Force Awakens. So in that scene, Rey gains access to a lot of Kylo's training and definitely ups her game. But and you sound kind of like you're a Legends guy. There are multiple things that happen in Legends when a Jedi either tapping into the cosmic force or being sort of a conduit for the cosmic force is able to become much more powerful. This happens multiple times in Legends, and that's what's happening right now. I mean, here's the thing. You are framing this in a way that is, I'm rejecting this thing, and here's all the reasons why. And that's fine, but that's not how you should be looking at a fantasy story. Now, magic systems, the thing that I really like about really great fantasy, in my opinion, I like fantasy that has a really tight magic system. And this is because in my brain, I like to figure things out and be like understanding how these things go, right? So the magic system within Aragon and the inheritance cycle is really great for that reason. I really like that magic system a lot, and it's really tight. And I really like the magic system in Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings series. You know, has a really great magic system. But the Force has never had that kind of a magic system. Like ever. It's thought of as a great mystery. You know what I mean? Sidious says to understand the great mystery, one must study all of its aspects, not just the narrow dogmatic view of the Jedi. Qui-Gon Jinn, famous Jedi, you know, trained with the Shaman of the Wills, sought different kind of training. You know what I'm saying? It's never been quite like that. So my answer to you is, you know, because this training thing. Look, do I think Rey should get more training? Absolutely. I would love to see Rey gain some more training. But just because you don't like the explanation of her being a conduit for the light side and having this very unique connection to the Force, just because you do not like it, does not discount it as being a diegetic explanation that fits within canon. You know what I mean? Some people might not like that Ezra Bridger can communicate with animals in a way we've never seen Jedi do. But just because you do not like it does not mean it breaks the rules of the universe. So that would be my answer to that. But yeah, let's do one more question, guys. I'm gonna do one more question, then I'm gonna get out of here. I gotta get some food. Getting kind of hungry. Maybe I'll do this one. Misconduct. I kind of like this question. So if the Mandalorian takes place after Return of the Jedi, wouldn't Boba Fett be dying in the stomach of the Sarlacc pit? Maybe. Or maybe he crawled his way out of it. I believe, okay, so there were a lot of people putting together rumors and trying to figure out, could Boba Fett be alive? And the theory crafters of this Star Wars community are great. And so you'll remember a couple of different things here. So you'll remember that Jabba said you will be digested in the pit of the Sarlacc for over 1,000 years. He tells Luke that. Which is like weird. Like, is it going to keep you alive for that long? Because normal humanoids don't live that long. But anyways, so the Sarlacc pit is not an instant kill kind of thing. That was part of its horror. Built into the scary part of the Sarlacc is like, you're not gonna die. You're gonna be slowly digested, and it's gonna suck. So it wouldn't have just killed Boba, right? So that's one aspect. Also, the armor gets out of there. The Sarlacc is damaged when the Return of the Jedi thing happens with like Luke and everybody. It's damaged. Takes some damage. So it could have even been killed. Or at the very least, it's like it's weakened. So you got this badass warrior, Boba, right? I think that guy could get out of that pit. I think he could get out. He could even maybe be very injured. Now, if we find him in the show, he would be old AF, as the kids say. So he would be very, very old, but he wouldn't necessarily be dead, and he definitely doesn't have to remain in the Sarlacc pit. Like, there's no like story logic that would keep him there. Do you know what I mean? You know, Darth Hammer, you have some very interesting ideas about it. I would say this. I would honestly tell you you should be articulating these ideas. If you did so in a respectful way, you could probably get to some really nice conversations with different people. And I think that, like I said, it would be wrong of me to say that people should enjoy Star Wars the way they want to enjoy Star Wars, and then come at you and say, oh, well, you're doing it wrong. No, that's not what I mean. You can enjoy it the way you want to enjoy it, and if you find issue with what's going on because it runs afoul of the way you enjoy your Star Wars, then like you're well within your rights to feel that way. But if you were to take my personal philosophy and try to extend it, then what that would mean is those feelings that you have in your perspective should not be weaponized to take away from another person's enjoyment or experience with it. Does that make sense? Heather Long's in the building, everybody. Heather, I'm so sorry. Heather Long, patron supporter, awesome author. Much praise to Heather Long. Got to give it up to the patrons when they come in here. Unfortunately, Heather, we're about to wrap. I'm about to get out of here. So, sorry about that. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out on this live stream and just in general, all the support that everyone shows to the channel. I'm just some nerd that loves talking about these things, and I'm trying to cultivate a group here where we can do that. We can just talk about the things we love, get nerdy about things, just have a lot of fun. A lot of cool content on the way. I, of course, do the Nerdy News Rundown, which is the show I do 5 days a week, just breaking down the nerdy news that's going on out there 5 days a week. So make sure you subscribe, enable notifications if you want to catch all of that. Star Wars Sundays are great. Always talking about the Star Wars. The video that will be coming out later today is all about the Jedi and the Force users that we could see show up in The Mandalorian. You are not going to want to miss that. That is going to be a good video. So thank you so much. No, Darth Hammer, you didn't disrespect me at all. I'm saying just be aware of how you could express your opinions in certain circles that could affect other people's experiences. Do you know what I mean? That's all. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. I'll be seeing you guys real soon. So here we go. As I always say, I hope you're having an awesome and a nerdy day. And I will see you, my friends, in the next video, which is later today. Come back and check it out. All right.